Anyone else hoarding their crafting trash? No piece is too small. They all have potential. Today, we explore that potential. Let me take you on a little tour of my textile trash. We'll start with the fabric. Small scraps. Knit scraps, large. Woven scraps, large. Woven scraps, medium. Knit scraps, medium. Ah, matchy matchy. Woven scraps, medium, good for patchworking. Foam scraps, tulle scraps, interfacing scraps, fabric scraps, unsorted. Yarn scraps, medium. Yarn scraps, small. Pause for coffee. Thread scraps, tiny. Crewel wool, long. Cotton pearl, long. 6-strand cotton, long. Tapestry wool, long. Tapestry and crewel wool, short. Beauty and the Beast scraps, or I suppose you could call them current embroidery project scraps. Macrame cord, colors, cream, white, different lengths. I'm sure I had a system. I rarely throw anything away, in this room at least. Don't ask me about the rest of the house. Don't look at it. It stresses me out. We're working on it. I try to keep as much of my crafty off-cuttings as possible because guess what? There's tons of creative stuff you can do with them. So we're going to try a few stuffs from inside that tons of stuff. Specifically, I want to try creating new textiles out of textile scraps, textile trash, cabbage, some people call it. Or ort, if you're going on the thread side. Cabbage and ort, cabbage and ort. It sounds like sort of an old school comedy duo. Welcome to the stage, Cabbage and Ort. Anyway, I have several methods of scrappy fabric creation that I'd like to try, like a whole list. But this is an exploration video. My goal here is not to make a large swath of fabric that I can turn into something. It's just to try each method. I'd like to get like a patch, a square of decent size essentially, out of each method so that I can save them and potentially in the future use them on like a patchwork something or other. Baguette pin, my best souvenir from France. I want to start with an embroidery thread scrap piece. An Ort sandwich, you could call it. And speaking of sandwiches, and baguettes. Did someone say sandwiches and baguettes? Y'all, I am absolutely thrilled that Wild Grain is back to sponsor this video. Wild Grain is the first bake from frozen sourdough bread subscription box. And I absolutely love that they partner with small bakers and pasta makers across the country to bring these artisanal goodies straight to your home, where they can be taken from the freezer to your table in just 25 minutes. There is nothing like warm, fresh bread right out of the oven, but even better, all of Wild Grain's products utilize slow, sourdough fermentation that is rich in nutrients and antioxidants, with no pressure on you to keep feeding a starter in your fridge. They also have a delightful range of pastas and pastries. These cherry pie bites are so freaking good. I normally avoid anything cherry flavored because I expect it to taste super fake, but as you can see from the incredibly small list of ingredients on the box, these are made with real cherries and you can taste the difference. There are constantly new and seasonal items to try from Wild Grain, and you can even get a 100% plant-based box. So if you would like to try Wild Grain for yourself, click the link in my description and use the code THESTITCHERY to get $30 off your first box, plus free croissants in every box. Have I mentioned their croissants are amazing? Now I'm gonna go make myself a fabulous sandwich out of this bread, but you can rejoin the me who is making a fabulous sandwich out of thread. Our first option here is also gonna use up some tulle scraps, so that's fun. I've got some kind of, I wanted to say thicker, but that doesn't really make sense. What's the opposite of fine? I have some fine white tulle and some not fine white tulle. We're off to a great start as far as me remembering words today. And then I also have black tulle, which could be cool if the threads show through enough, like if they're bright enough colors. Let's just start with the fine stuff though. Ow! This jar is sharp. So I'm just gonna cut 2 squares of the same-ish size and then sew them together on 3 sides. Probably should iron this first. I'll go ahead and cut some patches from the other ones as well. We might as well try everything, right? I have so many scraps. Try everything. Where's the end of this? Is there no end? Is this from my petticoat and it's one giant circle? Yes. Okay, that should do it for now. Yeah, we're already up to 4 variations. I'm always like, oh, you just try that one thing. Do it one way. But I can't help it. I like variations. Variations on a theme. We essentially have a little pocket. And then I'm just gonna stuff it. The goal is to have a pretty even, flat layer of your threads. Let me just dig them out of here. Yes, yes, thread soup. Ooh, I do have all the colors in here. So I'm gonna kind of spread these out before I even put them in, because right now they're kind of in clumps, and I want more of a flat layer. Okay. You could also put down one piece of tulle, lay this on top, and then set the other piece on top and do your sewing around. I don't know. Either way, I think works. We'll see how hard it is to stuff this. Not too hard at all. I also kind of want to separate like big clumps of the same color, like all of this hot pink. And I'm really gonna push it into like the corners and the edges. Let's check from both sides, because this side could be used too. Oh, look at that. There's a whole needle lace flower beginning in here. That's kind of fun. And then I'm gonna sew this closed right here. And I don't really want to sew over the threads, so I'm gonna try to push them inside for now. So we've ended up with this like packet, which is already really cool. I'm gonna try to kind of just use my hands to manipulate the thread back out into the side that I sewed. And I suppose you could leave it like this and just say that's the textile right there. But, you know, over time, or depending on how you use it, if stuff gets pulled or loosened, it would all shift around. So to make this more secure like this, I'm gonna quilt over it. Just sew straight lines in either way. Well, I might sew diagonal lines. I think that would look a little cooler. But, you know, not too close together. I don't think it needs to be super tight together lines because this is a fine tulle, but just enough to kind of hold everything down and to give it all a really cool texture. There we go. I love the little flower in it. That's so fun. And it looks different on each side. I didn't really separate that blue as much as I thought I did. I love that. I mean, that was so quick and easy to make. Granted, it's a small piece, but like, that'd be so cool as, I don't know, the front of a purse, a patch on something, a pocket. It's not a texture I love, not really because of the thread, but because of this tulle. So I really wouldn't want it to be something that was up against my skin. But you have a lot of options for what you could do with something so beautiful like this. And you could also quilt over the top in a bunch of different ways, especially if you're more experienced with quilting or with freehand quilting. Is that what it's called? Free motion quilting? I don't know much about quilting. I'm happy to do something simple. So that's sample number 1. Variations on this exact same theme. I'm gonna try the black tulle, and then I'm gonna try the thicker tulle, the non-fine tulle. On this one, I might try stuffing it with some of my macrame cord, because you can pull that apart and shred it, and I have fewer colors, so I might try to even like control where the colors go. And then I have a final variation on this theme, but I'll come back to you for that. For the black tulle, I used my longer scraps of cotton pearl thread, very much like playing around with cooked and yet dry pasta. I tried out more of a design style with the stitching over the top rather than just a grid, and I really like how this one looks. It's much more subtle with the shading of the tulle over it, plus the outer material is softer, so it's more pleasant textures overall. For the thicker tulle, which I guess could be called netting, I wanted to play around with specific color groups, so I stitched in columns first, and then after ripping up my macrame cord into thinner pieces, I stuffed each section separately before closing it off with a horizontal seam. I then used a pin to smooth the cord scraps out and get them into the corners before repeating the process to make a checkerboard effect. Didn't check in advance how much of the lavender scraps I had, so I sorta had to cheat and create some more, but oh well, this one's so cute, it's reminding me of Battenberg cake. Okay, so for the final variation on this theme, I'm gonna do yarn scraps, because I got a lot of them. I need to stuff something with these, y'all. I have way too many yarn scraps. Oh, I don't want the white ones. I'm gonna dig for color. But the difference here is I've done just a piece of white fabric with the tulle on top. So I've done my little pocket, but my thought here is that one, it might make the scraps stand out even more being against an actual opaque background, but two, if this was up against the skin, this side of it would be more pleasant to the touch, and overall you'd kind of get the same effect in the end, yeah? I might stuff this one really thick and just see what happens. Like if I really poof it up and then I sew over it, ooh, I could hand sew like little knots over it rather than actually doing the lines. I think there's yarn in my mouth. Oh, I got a lot of green. This is all from the moss rug. Okay, that's why I have so many yarn scraps. This is mostly the moss rug. That should be plenty. Let me mix it up a little first. Takes me back to like, what was it? Cold Stone Creamery, where they put your ingredients in the ice cream and then mix it all up. I say that like they don't exist anymore. They still exist, I just haven't been there in ages. This is actually really good for stuffing things. If I ever do something small, because despite how much I have, you have to stuff stuff pretty well, so it would have to be like a smallish pillow. There's a smallish pillow on my list, actually. Okay, I still want it kind of flat. I still want a piece of fabric, not a pillow. I think that'll do. Ooh, okay, you know what you could do with this? Which is already a thing that people do. This isn't like a new idea. But I think people do like puffy quilts where you stuff each square individually and then, or like hexagons, I think I've seen them done. But if you did it all like this with the tulle and you stuffed it with various scraps that you have, you could even like cut up fabric really small. If you have yarn scraps, thread scraps, whatever, you could stuff all these various little pockets with tulle on top and either turn it into a quilt or like insert them into a quilt in various areas. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah, I think I'm gonna hand stitch like French knots in various places rather than doing lines over it. I'll be back with the results in 3, 2, 1. Results! I really like this one. It's squishy and fun, but it's not so squishy that you're like, that's a pillow. But I mean, if you did this with a whole bunch of fabric and made like a coat out of it, that looks so cool, especially if you had like really cool colors of yarn scraps. I mean, the puffiness is like a puffer coat, but the tulle on the outside so you can see the stuffing and the stuffing being scraps and being all the different colors. It's really fun. And I probably have time tonight to do one more, but I just rubbed my nose and it was super greasy and now I'm grossed out, so I need to go wash my face at 5 o'clock in the evening so I can continue functioning. I'll come back to this tomorrow. Back at it. These are what I would call the tulle sandwich method. So today we are gonna try the interfacing sandwich. So many sandwiches. So for this, I'm using wash away interfacing that theoretically melts when you get it wet. I don't love this stuff. I've used it in the past for embroidery and I'm sure different brands react differently, but the one that I used did not just melt away as quickly as I was hoping it would. It kind of required an intense amount of scrubbing to get rid of it. Anyway, that's not of any importance right now. The basic concept here is kind of the same as that. You're gonna get 2 pieces of interfacing and sandwich your scraps in between, and then do the quilting, but like way more quilting, because then when you melt away the interfacing, the idea is that all of the stitching you've done will hold your scraps together in a magical new textile. This is kind of wrinkly. I should probably iron it. Can you iron wash away interfacing? I don't know. So this time I thought I would use yarn scraps again, but rather than using like the little fuzzy bits that I mostly put in here, I'm gonna try to use more of, you know, the slightly longer chunks of yarn. Purple, green, here's some yellow. As usual, I wanna kind of mix it up. No bright orange. Yeah, see, these are definitely slightly longer pieces that will hold together, in theory. Okay, I think we just gotta go for it. What's the worst that could happen? Let's go see what happens when we wash away the interfacing, yeah? I'm honestly not sure if this one will work. Like, obviously, on some level, it would work, but I don't know that this was enough stitching to hold everything together. I don't know, we just have to go see. This wash away interfacing melted away super quickly, so huzzah! And while I definitely think this could use more stitching to hold it together, it's at least not falling apart. Leaving it there to dry, I decided to try this a second time, but with fabric scraps. So first off, I need to cut some of my tiny cabbage into even tinier cabbage. Just sort of confetti-sized pieces. If you have a rotary cutter, you can just pile pieces up and then roll over them a million times, but I didn't mind the dangle and snip method. Just careful around the fingers. I also tried to keep my scraps in a color theme for funsies, blue and white with some yellow. Now the cabbage confetti gets sandwiched, and instead of making a pocket this time, I'm laying it all out neatly and then pinning a bunch to hold it in place. I'm gonna sew very randomly and curvily on this one, removing the pins as I go and trying to leave no large sections unstitched. That seems decent, so back to my bowl of water to dissolve the outside, and yeah, we're losing a few small pieces here and there, so this one definitely needed more stitching. Still, it mostly holds together, so I left both of these to dry overnight and then added extra stitching the next day so they're more secure. My main takeaway from the interfacing sandwich method is to stitch way more than you think you have to, so you get a nice solid piece of material. Though if you have some holes here and there that you don't want, it's not all that hard to layer on a few more pieces afterward and do some extra stitching. I love these textures, they're so freaking cool. Both pieces are a little crispy in feel right now, the fabric more so than the yarn, but I think that's just leftover interfacing particles on them, so if I was going to use them for something, I'd give them another gentle rinse in clean water and let them dry again. Hello? Are you trotting around so much today? Okay, so I have several fabric scrap methods that I want to try, but I'm going to leave that for tomorrow because it's getting kind of late today already. I have one other random thing, which is foam scrap fabric. This is all the leftover little bits of foam from my dress form that I made. And when I was making that, I was having so much fun sewing all this stuff together. It's just, I don't know, really delightful for me to sew these with the zigzag stitch and everything. And I thought, what if I take all of these leftover pieces and sort of patchwork them together, but use like different brightly colored threads to do the zigzag stitches so that you end up with like stripes of various colors. I don't know how good this will look. Also, I don't really know what you would do with the finished material. But hey, it doesn't matter. We're experimenting, we're exploring. Let's try it. Doing all the stitching in one bright color would make this process simpler, but I really liked the idea of several bright lines of thread going every which way, and I had a lot of fun piecing it all together. All right, so our final options, styles that we're gonna test, are all about the fabric scraps, les caboches, which I have got a whole bunch of. I'm gonna stick with just my tiny scraps. Tiny. I don't think for anything that I'm doing I need bigger pieces. This is all about using up the little stuff. The first option uses iron-on interfacing. So I'm just gonna cut myself a sample size, and then basically we're just gonna make, you know, shapes. They don't have to be squares, but we're gonna try to cover the whole thing in fabric scraps and then iron it down and then quilt over it, or like sew stitches over it. I'm never fully sure what you can refer to as quilting or not, and I wouldn't care so much, except that I know quilters care. How big do we want this? I mean, I am just doing samples, but this is also a pretty easy thing, so I think I'll make a kind of big sample. Why not? Did I cut that line incredibly crooked? Wow. Yes, I did. Shall we dump? Puppy, you're in my dump zone. It is of no concern to me whether I am in your dump zone. Boop, 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 boop. And boink. Perfect. Oh, Lord. That's a lot of scraps. I'm just gonna pull out some bright stuff, cause you know me, I like the bright stuff. Ooh, a little bit of orange, that's fun. Some green, ooh, those are my shorts. This is really going back through your project history, which is kind of fun. Okay, I think that should do it. So I'm gonna iron any of these that are really wrinkled flat, cut them into the shapes that I want, and arrange them over this whole piece, and then iron the backing onto them so they all stay together. I made it a little harder on myself by doing both woven and knit scraps, but that's okay. This is just a sample, so it doesn't have to look perfect. And also, you totally can combine the two. I would just recommend layering knits under the wovens so that they have more surface area touching the stickiness of the interfacing, and therefore they're not gonna stretch out as much. Hi, Bobby. What? That is so much huffing. Are you just demanding attention? Oh my God, y'all. Y'all, I put all of this on the wrong side. The sticky side is facing down right now. Well, here we go again. With that little brain fart reconciled, I started by stitching a grid from the back just because it's easier to draw lines on the interfacing if you want like nice evenness. Then I added another grid sewing from the top so there weren't any large areas where the edges could come up. I like that this style of constructed material stays pretty thin and light, but you could also totally do this over batting or felt for a more puffy version. These would make fun placemats if you like put a backing on them. And again, it's a cool like tour through all your previous projects. Lots of fun. So last thing we're gonna try in this video is another fabric scrap option similar to that, but without the raw edges, if that's something you don't want. I think this could technically be called crazy quilting. The quilters will let us know in the comments. So again, I've seen this done on an interfacing backing, and I think that just kind of makes it easier to have something to stitch stuff onto, but I think you can also do it without that. So I'm gonna start by trying it just totally without a backing, and if it doesn't work well, we'll try the backing. You basically are just patchworking essentially, but you're just building it up. So you would sew two pieces together, fold it open, iron those seams out if you want to be on it, and now you have a slightly bigger piece. Then you just take another piece, layer it somewhere on top, right side to right side. So fold it open, iron your seams, and you can just keep building outward like that, and you get all of these crazy different shapes. And then at the end, you can go back and trim off any excess on the back if you want to. So let's give that a go. I probably should not use knit material for this. I think if I was using the interfacing backing, I could get away with it because that would provide some structure on the woven, on the knit fabrics and keep them from stretching. But since I'm just doing it without anything behind it, I think I need to stick with all woven materials. I'm gonna have to pick through this again, cause y'all know I sew a lot of knit stuff, so a lot of this is knit scraps. Maybe I should do like something color coordinating, or even kind of monotone? I don't know, let me see what I got. I decided to go with a black, white, gray, and hot pinkish color palette, and then just started slapping bits together, ironing each piece as I went. I didn't come into it with much of a strategy, which sounds more dramatic than piecing together scraps really is, but honestly, I think it helps to work from the center outward, almost in a spiral, rather than working from a corner across or the top down or something, you know? You could also put some top stitching over this, whether on the seam lines themselves or, you know, randomly like quilting, sort of. But I'm gonna leave it for now. That's a pretty decent sized piece of new fabric. And then just because I found them all in my scrap bag, I decided to do this same method again, but with all of the scraps from my patchwork overalls. These are fun because they're already sewn together, they're already patchworked, so I could utilize a lot of the existing seams. Most of the pieces are also rather long strips too, since they were the offcuts from a pattern piece, which meant it was really easy to do that sort of spiraling from the center method, albeit in a squarish way. This one definitely lays a little flatter than my first attempt and was easier to put together. Y'all, if you've ever done a patchwork project that left you with offcuts like this, I highly recommend re-patchworking the patchwork offcuts so that you then have a new stretch of material. You could keep doing this forever. Eventually I think it would get too small. That was so much fun. I could have kept going even longer on this one. I was running out of large enough scraps to kind of match what I had already done, but it was going so well. So much for small squares. This is already pretty big. I need to make like, I don't know, a purse or something to go with my overalls, because, you know, it would match them. And this one, I think because of the variety of materials, like this is kind of all quilting cotton, whereas this is a large variety of, you know, thicknesses, and they're not stretchy materials, but some of them have more ease than others. I think this one, if you don't want any like buckling, any curves or anything, if you really want like a nice sturdy piece of material, this would be the better one to do with an interfacing on the back, just to make sure that like everything is laying nice and flat. So there we have it. How many samples did I make? 1, 2, 3, 4. I love this. I don't know why. Tell me if you also are getting this vibe. This is giving me like old school, well, I guess they weren't video games, arcade game vibes. Like Pac-Man or something? Is it the color palette? I genuinely don't know. 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm so good at always making 10 samples without actually meaning to. Woo! This was all so fun. It really does make me want to do an actual thing out of it. You know, going all the way up to a garment is definitely a big commitment. Like, obviously the crazy quilting patchworking would be a little easier for that, but these other methods, it would be, you know, quite an advancement to go from making a sample to making an entire garment. But making a bag, making a purse, something like that, or even just making more samples. I mean, if you've been making for a while, then I guarantee you also have some cabbage and ort laying around. And if you're ever just, you know, wanting to do something creative, it's kind of like doodling is to me. There's no parameters, there's no rules. You can just kind of sit down and play around with stuff. And then you're making samples that you can save and potentially find reasons to use later on, whether as art pieces, as patches, as pockets. It's just really a fun experiment and a great way to recycle and reuse the materials that you already have to make it worthwhile and for a reason that we all have these storage containers full of scraps. Do I have a favorite? I really like the foam. Of course, I love this final crazy quilting patchworked piece. These two I like in concept, but I struggle to picture them becoming anything. I feel like this needs to like ruminate in my brain a little further. All of these I really like the look of. These are so fun. And genuinely, I kind of want to just keep making these, like specifically this same size, with various thread, yarn, macrame cord scraps, and just start piling them up and then turn it into a quilt or a quilted jacket or something. I don't know. I might do that here and there, or I might just do that in a video in the future. If you have tried any of these, let me know. Let me know how you like them. If you have other things that you've done with scraps to create new fabric or something, I think obviously like stuffing stuff with your scraps is a great way to reuse them, and it's kind of a base, a baseline of like, here's something you can do with your scraps. But if you've done anything beyond that I didn't try here, let me know, because I would totally do like a part 2 of this and try a bunch of new ideas. I think this was all of the ideas that I currently had though, that I've gathered over the last few years. And speaking of storage containers full of scraps, I gotta put all these back in the bags now. Bye! I have zip tie scraps. That's not really a textile. That doesn't count. Don't do that one. Just gonna sit here frozen like a statue while a helicopter goes over. But this is an exploration. Pardon me while I scratch my eye. Skirt. Oh God. All right. I need to stop wearing these things.
Change me. Keep breathing. Change me.
Well, that was a blast from the past.